Welcome to our Cartne video titled, How Can I Improve My Chances of Getting a Gig as well as Avoid Being Ripped Off? Our guest today is Dan Melnick.
Okay, hello everyone. This is Dan Melnick, GM of SonicBids. I've been working in the music industry for about 15 years. Before SonicBids, I owned a concert promotion agency called Turnstile Music Group for a little under a decade. Very much New York-based guy, and happy to be here today.
I'm sure over the years you've seen some mistakes that artists make over and over again when pitching themselves for gigs. Can you tell us some of those common mistakes?
All right, so just general strategic booking practices, I think, is probably a good way to look at that. I think knowing your market is probably the first thing to check off when you're trying to book a gig. If you are based in Rochester, right, you probably shouldn't be playing New York City just because you're in the same state. You probably should be only playing New York City if you're ready to play New York City. And the self-awareness around that, I think, is an important factor when it comes to booking strategy and pitching the right gigs. I don't think it's a difficult thing to get a gig at all. What we do at SonicBids specifically is number one, we vet our opportunities more than anyone else on the internet. So we make sure the opportunities on there are, one, not scams, which there's so many different kinds of scams out there in the live music world. And two, we cater to the independent artist, right? I mean, if you're pitching a gig, you're an independent artist. Until you have an agent who's getting the gigs for you, you're still an independent artist. So you should act and have the self-realization that you are an independent artist and be pitching the right gigs for your band. And what that means is, what are the size rooms that you should appropriately be playing? Knowing the size of your audience is very key too. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions for artists at a say younger stage of their careers is, just wanting to play the biggest room, because they're assuming just playing the biggest room is going to make them the biggest. But from someone who's booked over 3,000 gigs, I've seen as many good shows in smaller spaces as I've seen bad shows in larger spaces. Meaning, like, if you're going to play a 500 cap room and you can't sell over 100 tickets, it's gonna feel empty and it's gonna be a lame show. Or you can play a 150 cap room and have 50 people there, and that's percentage-wise a larger percentage of the capacity of that room, and therefore it'll be a more successful event for not only you but the people who are there, because it's going to feel less awkward for them. I've seen bands break up on stage because they've overpromised and underdelivered, and really it's only a disservice to yourself, especially on an independent stage.
Do you find that many artists exaggerate about themselves as far as what they can actually deliver?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, let's say everyone in general in any situation probably is less realistic and more optimistic when pitching themselves to do anything. I mean, from job interviews to Tinder, probably exaggerations going across the board there. But, I don't really think, from someone who knows how rooms are booked, it's not very common that someone's like, hey, how many tickets are you going to sell, right? And if you hear that from someone who's trying to book you, that's a little bit of a red flag. It really is, because most bookers and most talent buyers who know what they're doing, they're going to scour you on the internet. They're going to find out where you've played. They're going to look at the most important media that's on your site, and they're going to figure it out on their own what they think that you can bring. You may have a conversation. We have a show in 2 days, and another show actually in a couple of months that we're booking. And if I go on an artist's social media and I can't see any live pictures or videos, that's a red flag for me as someone who's a talent seeker, right? I don't need to ask someone because I already know the answer. But yeah, if you are, if you are asked, maybe it may not be the room for you, and that may not be the room for the talent buyer who's booking that room.
So what are some of those red flags that an artist should look for that might signal a gig could be a scam?
I teach at NYU currently, and I was teaching at the Rock Nation School, and we had a day of scams, and it really boils down to just one simple question: is, are you being asked to pay something as an artist? If the answer is yes, it's a scam. That's it. Just as simple as that. Now, look, I know personally people who are good people in the music industry who've had situations in the live side where they do a ticket pre, right? I've been asked as an artist to do a ticket pre before. I did it one time. I'll never do it again. It just doesn't really make sense. Like, you can get there in whatever market you're in without having to do ticket pre-buys, because there's other ways to do things on that size and that level. I mean, hell, do it yourself. You could do it yourself. I mean, some artists don't realize they can just go to a venue, not have to go through a promoter, because only a promoter is going to ask for a ticket pre. Venues themselves rarely have the infrastructure, and if they do have an in-house talent buyer, they have their shit together enough to not do ticket pre's. Ticket pre's are usually done with promoters, because promoters have to usually take a larger risk on those events, and that's the way that they mitigate that risk. So real short answer is, if you're ever getting asked to pay something at all, then it's a scam. Percentages is a different thing. Shares and percentages is that's fair. That's how the whole industry works from top to bottom, from indie to the biggest rock star. That's how it's done, percentages. Symbiotic relationships.
What promotional items should an artist send to an entertainment venue?
Like I mentioned earlier, the things that talent buyers are going to look for on your site is tour history. So make sure you have an updated tour history and updated upcoming gigs. And also live shots. Now, I think from photographers to artists themselves, they kind of confuse what's important on that level. Like, it doesn't mean having 100 different photos of yourself on stage boxed in, and it's just your band on stage. Those are useless when it comes to gig booking. Yeah, they may be great for your ego, or maybe some content that may look cool for depending on what your fan base is into. But really, from industry-wise and from business-wise, you need pictures of the crowd and you, right? I always love, my favorite thing I learned from someone from Warner years ago. The little hint that they had is the crowd selfie, and it's something I see even larger artists do today. Is before your show or after your show, take a selfie with the crowd behind you, right, and then tag everybody. Especially because, I mean, look, you're an independent artist, you pretty much know everyone who's in that crowd, because it also helps with sharing, and it also shows us as talent seekers, what does your crowd look like, and it shows that you know how to engage with your crowd, and that's an important part of what you do. So, videos and photos of you interacting with your crowd, not just you on stage. And also live videos of you performing, so we know how you sound. And yeah.
How professional does that video need to be? Should an artist hire a videographer?
Oh, 100% phone's fine. I mean, especially because most iPhones are as good as, a high quality camera nowadays anyway. But for us, it's just like a data thing. Like, somebody's looking at talent, they're going to go, okay, here's a photo. I see 4 people looking, watching the show. That's probably a no thing. So don't even post that. Also, like, I think a really good rule of thumb for any artist playing any market is, if you're not, especially in New York, I can say, if you can't have 10 people come out and support you as an artist, you're not ready to perform live. Go play a couple open mics. If you're trying to get your chops down, right, then that's fine. Get some open mics going. But, like, don't play a ticketed show until you're ready to.
Do you have any suggestions for pricing yourself effectively?
If I'm an independent original artist, I probably am not thinking about that until it's a problem that is solving itself. Meaning, if I can put a price on my original music, right, I probably have representation that's handling that at that point. If I'm a cover artist, that's a whole different story. I mean, in my opinion, it's a whole different industry. But if I'm playing original music, I'm probably not asking for a guarantee, because that's just not how it works, really. I mean, if you're selling tickets to a fan base. Once you are able to get to a level where you are demanding a guarantee, it means that you have a level of notoriety, at least on your local scene, where there's going to be an agent or management company that comes and scoops you up and takes care of that. I don't think I've ever paid a guarantee to anyone who's never been on like CAA or WME or Wasserman or anything like that. That's really more of like a wedding gig kind of thing.
Do you have any other final suggestions for artists when they're pitching themselves to gigs?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so many, but I would say the number one thing is to know your scene. Understand your scene, go know your scene, go out to shows in your scene. Like, it's as important to be part of the scene as it is to like start to steer that scene, like trying to be the artist involved with that scene. If you don't know the best venues, or you don't know, there's like venue staircases or ladders, depending on whatever term you want to use in most markets, right? There's the smallest rooms that are the easiest to play, up to the largest rooms that start to get booked by like the Live Nations or Bowery AEGs, and trying to find your way and how to navigate that scene is super important, because like you could spin your wheels in a certain market. Like, I'm not going to name venues, but I'm sure there's probably some down near you in Nashville, which are like, you get the same bands playing there every 4 to 6 weeks, and they're going to be doing that forever until they fizzle out, right? Then there's other venues that are going to gain you the notoriety as an artist that are going to open up doors to the larger venues in your given market. And look, those larger venues, though, as we discussed earlier, are only going to be appropriate for you to play when you're at the level to play those appropriate venues.
Thanks, Dan. That was extremely valuable information. That concludes our video titled, How Can I Improve My Chances of Getting a Gig and Avoid Getting Ripped Off? With Dan Melnick, GM of SonicBids.